The phone call came on a Tuesday evening, right after I'd finished my shift at the warehouse. I was heating up leftover pasta, still in my work boots, when I saw Emily's name flash across the screen. My daughter, my only child. The person I'd built my entire life around for the past 26 years. "Hey, sweetheart," I answered, cradling the phone against my shoulder as I stirred the pot. "How are the wedding plans coming along?" There was a pause. Not the comfortable kind we usually shared, but something heavier. Something that made my hands stop moving. "Dad, I need to talk to you about something." I turned off the stove. "What's wrong? Is everything okay with Marcus?" "Everything's fine. Great, actually. It's just—" Another pause. I could hear her breathing, gathering courage for something. "It's about the rehearsal dinner." "The one at that fancy hotel downtown? I've got it marked on my calendar. 2 weeks from Friday, right?" "Right. About that." Her voice dropped lower, almost to a whisper, as if she didn't want to hear her own words. "Dad, I love you. You know I love you more than anything. But I've been thinking, and you're not really presentable." The word hit me like a physical blow. Presentable. "I don't understand," I said slowly, even though I was starting to understand perfectly. "Marcus's family is different from us. They're wealthy, Dad. Really wealthy. His mother went to finishing school in Switzerland. His father sits on boards of Fortune 500 companies. They expect a certain standard. They're used to a certain kind of person." I sat down at my kitchen table, the same table I'd bought at a garage sale 15 years ago. The same table where Emily had done her homework every night, where I'd helped her practice for debate team, where we'd celebrated every birthday with homemade cake because bakery cakes were too expensive. Before we get into it, don't forget to like and subscribe, and hit hype to boost this episode. Drop a comment below with your city or country. I'm always curious where viewers are joining from. "And I'm not that kind of person," I said flatly. "Dad, please don't make this harder than it already is. You know how important this is to me. This is my chance to finally be part of something bigger, something better." "Something better than me?" She didn't say it, but the words hung in the air like smoke. "I worked 2 jobs to pay for this wedding, Emily. I paid for your dress, the photographer, the flowers, most of the catering. And I'm grateful. I am. That's why I'm trying to make this easier for everyone. You can still come to the ceremony. Of course, you're walking me down the aisle. I just think maybe the rehearsal dinner should be for the wedding party and immediate family who are more comfortable in that environment. I'm your father. I am immediate family. You know what I mean." Her voice took on an edge of frustration. "His mother already thinks I'm marrying down. If you show up in your Walmart suit talking about your warehouse job and your pickup truck, it's going to confirm every prejudice she has about me." I looked down at my calloused hands that had worked themselves raw to give her everything. Piano lessons, dance classes, private school when the public school wasn't good enough, a used car when she turned 16, 4 years at a state university with no student loans because I'd worked overtime for a decade to save for it. "So what are you asking me, Emily?" She exhaled, relieved that I was finally getting it. "Just skip the rehearsal dinner. Come to the ceremony, walk me down the aisle, smile for photos, and then you can leave before the reception gets too late. That way, you're part of the important moments, but you don't have to feel uncomfortable around all those people." The really twisted part was how she'd framed it, like she was doing me a favor, like I was the one who would be uncomfortable. "If that's what you want," I said quietly. "Thank you, Daddy. Thank you for understanding. You're the best father anyone could ask for. But apparently not presentable enough to share a meal with." After she hung up, I sat in my dark kitchen for a long time, the pasta growing cold in the pot. The walls around me were covered with photos of Emily. First day of school, high school graduation, college acceptance letter, every milestone I'd been there for, working myself to exhaustion to make sure she had opportunities I never did. And now I was too embarrassing to introduce to her new family. I should have fought, should have told her how much that hurt, should have demanded the respect I'd earned through 2 decades of sacrifice. But I didn't. I just sat there in the dark, feeling something inside me harden into a cold, quiet resolve. She wanted presentable? I'd give her presentable. People always assumed I was just a warehouse worker, a simple man with simple means. And for the most part, they were right. I did work at a warehouse, lifting boxes and managing inventory 40 hours a week. I also drove a truck on weekends for extra cash. I lived in a modest house in a modest neighborhood and drove a 10-year-old pickup that I maintained myself. What people didn't know was why. Emily's mother left when Emily was 3, just packed her bags one morning and said she couldn't do this anymore. Motherhood, marriage, the limitations of a working-class life. She sent birthday cards for the first few years, then even those stopped coming. I heard through mutual friends that she'd moved to California and married a tech executive. Sometimes I wondered if she even remembered she had a daughter. I became both parents after that. I dropped Emily off at daycare at 6 in the morning so I could make my shift. Picked her up at 6 in the evening after working overtime. We ate dinner together every night, even if I was so tired I could barely keep my eyes open. I learned to braid hair by watching YouTube videos. I attended every parent-teacher conference, every school play, every soccer game, even when I had to leave work early and lose those hours. When Emily was 10, she came home crying because the other kids at school wore designer clothes and took vacations to Disney World. I'd been saving for a new roof, but I took that money and bought her the clothes and the vacation instead. The roof leaked for another 3 years, and I put buckets in the attic every time it rained. When she was 13, she wanted to go to the private school across town because they had a better music program. Tuition was $12,000 a year. I took on the weekend trucking job and cut every expense I could. We ate rice and beans 4 nights a week. I stopped getting haircuts and learned to trim my own hair. But she got that education. High school brought new expenses, prom dresses, college prep courses, SAT tutoring, then senior trip. I sold my father's coin collection, the only thing of value I'd inherited. I sold my motorcycle. I maxed out credit cards and worked every holiday for double time. She got into a good university. Not Ivy League, but solid, respectable, and expensive. I'd been saving since she was born, but it wasn't enough. So I refinanced the house and worked 3 jobs for a while. The warehouse, the trucking, and weekend security at a shopping mall. I slept 4 hours a night. I developed high blood pressure and ignored it because I couldn't afford time off for doctor visits. But she graduated with honors and 0 debt. Then came Marcus. Marcus Wellington III, with his trust fund and his family compound, and his casual assumption that everyone summered in the Hamptons. Marcus, who proposed with a ring that cost more than I made in a year. When Emily called to tell me they were engaged, she was breathless with excitement. "Dad, you're going to love him, and his family has offered to help with the wedding. Isn't that generous?" I later learned that help with the wedding meant paying for about 18% of it while taking credit for the whole thing. The venue, the band, the bar service, the impressive stuff that guests would notice and talk about. Meanwhile, I quietly paid for the dress, the photographer, the videographer, the florist, the invitations, the transportation, the wedding planner's fee, the rehearsal dinner venue deposit, 82% of the total cost spread across 3 maxed-out credit cards and a loan against my truck. Marcus's mother took Emily shopping at upscale bridal boutiques and posted photos on social media about helping her future daughter-in-law prepare for her special day. She hosted a bridal shower at their country club and invited all her society friends. She talked about the wedding as if it were primarily her accomplishment, her gift to the young couple, and Emily let her. I watched my daughter transform over the months of wedding planning. She started saying summer as a verb. She name-dropped restaurants I'd never heard of. She talked about Marcus's family connections and the doors they could open. She posted photos from their country club and their yacht and their casual weekends in Martha's Vineyard. She visited me less and less. When she did come by, I could see her noticing things. The worn carpet, the outdated kitchen, the secondhand furniture. She'd suggest gently that I might want to update my space or invest in my appearance. I'd created this. I'd worked so hard to give her a better life that I'd somehow made her ashamed of where she came from. The phone call about the rehearsal dinner was just the final confirmation of what I'd been watching happen for months. I was no longer her beloved father. I was a liability, an embarrassment, a reminder of a class she was desperate to leave behind. That night, after she told me to skip the dinner, I sat at my kitchen table and did something I hadn't done since her mother left. I cried. What Emily didn't know, what almost no one knew, was that I had a secret. His name was Robert Chen, and he was the reason I'd been able to afford anything at all for the past 15 years. Robert and I met when Emily was 12. I was working security at an office building on weekends, doing rounds with a flashlight and a radio. One Saturday night, I found a man in a suit sitting on the floor of a hallway, his head in his hands, surrounded by papers. "Sir, you okay?" I asked, hand on my radio in case this was some kind of crisis. He looked up, and I saw tear tracks on his face. "I'm ruined," he said simply. "Everything I've built, gone." I should have just called my supervisor. It wasn't my job to counsel distraught white-collar workers, but something about the raw despair in his voice made me sit down next to him instead. "Want to talk about it?" He laughed bitterly. "Would you understand venture capital and startup equity?" "Probably not," I admitted. "But I understand what it feels like when everything falls apart." So he talked. For 2 hours, while I was supposed to be doing rounds, he told me about his company, a tech startup that was supposed to revolutionize data security. They'd been days away from a major investment deal when their lead developer stole their proprietary code and sold it to a competitor. The deal fell through. His investors pulled out. His company was finished. But worse than that, he'd personally guaranteed some of the company's debts. He was about to lose his house, his savings, everything. "I have a daughter," he said. "She's 8. How do I tell her we're losing our home?" I knew that fear intimately, the terror of failing your child. "You'll figure it out," I said, "because you have to. That's what parents do. We figure it out." He looked at me curiously. "You have kids?" I showed him a photo of Emily on my phone, told him about her private school, her piano lessons, her dreams of college. "How do you afford all that on a security guard salary?" "I work 3 jobs. I don't sleep much. And I've gotten very creative with rice and beans recipes." He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "I need to make a phone call." I left him there and finished my rounds. When I came back an hour later, he was standing up, straightening his tie, looking like a different person. "I just called my former lead developer," he said. Told him I knew what he'd done and that I had proof. I didn't actually, but I bluffed. Told him I'd go to every major tech company and newspaper if he didn't make this right. What did he say? "He's going to return the code and keep his mouth shut, and I'm going to salvage my company." I blinked. "Just like that?" "Just like that, because sometimes all you need is the courage to stand up and call someone's bluff." He extended his hand. "Thank you. I was about to do something stupid tonight, maybe even permanent. You saved my life by just sitting with me." We shook hands, and I figured that was the end of it. 3 months later, I got a call from a lawyer saying that someone wanted to invest in my future. Robert had tracked me down. His company had survived and was starting to recover. He wanted to set up a trust fund for Emily's education. I refused. I didn't take charity. He called me himself. "It's not charity. It's payment for a debt. You gave me hope when I had none. Let me give your daughter opportunity." I still refused, so he got creative. He offered me a different deal. He needed someone he could trust, someone with integrity, to consult on his business decisions. Nothing formal, just someone to talk through ideas with. Someone who would be honest with him, who wasn't trying to kiss up or manipulate him. He'd pay me a consulting fee. It was a face-saving gesture, we both knew it, but it gave me a way to accept his help. Over the years, as his company grew and eventually went public, making him extraordinarily wealthy, Robert kept our arrangement. We'd meet once a month for coffee. He'd talk through business problems, and I'd offer my perspective. Usually something like, "Well, what would you tell your daughter to do?" Or, "Does this pass the smell test?" He said I was his most valuable advisor because I had no agenda and no bullshit. The consulting fees started small, but grew over time. He insisted on tying them to his company's performance, which meant that as he got richer, so did I, at least by comparison. I was never wealthy, but I had enough to cover Emily's education without drowning in debt, enough to give her opportunities while still maintaining my working-class life. I never told Emily about Robert. I didn't want her to know that her opportunities had come from anything other than my hard work. In a way, they had. Robert's investment was payment for that night in the hallway, for the 3 jobs and the sleepless nights that had given me the perspective he valued. Robert and I became real friends over the years. I attended his daughter's piano recitals. He came to Emily's high school graduation. Our families were connected in a way that had nothing to do with money and everything to do with 2 fathers who understood each other. When Emily got engaged, I mentioned it to Robert over coffee, told him about Marcus and his wealthy family, tried to laugh off my insecurities about not fitting into that world. Robert wasn't laughing. "They're making you feel small?" No, it's fine. Emily's happy. That's what matters." But Robert knew me too well. Over the months of wedding planning, he heard the things I didn't say. He noticed when I mentioned that Emily was coming around less. He caught the hurt in my voice when I talked about her new friends and her country club visits. Then came the phone call about the rehearsal dinner. I made the mistake of mentioning it to Robert the next time we met. "She told you not to come to your own daughter's rehearsal dinner?" His voice was ice. "She's just trying to fit in with Marcus's family. I understand." "Do you? Because I don't." He leaned forward. "Let me tell you something. I've met hundreds of wealthy families in my business. Some of them are good people who happen to have money, but most of them? They're just average people with an inflated sense of their own importance because of their bank accounts. They need to be taken down a peg." "Robert, I don't want to cause drama at Emily's wedding." "Then don't, but let me help you make a point." He smiled, and there was something sharp in it. "Did I ever tell you that I'm the one who paid for that engagement ring?" I stared at him. What? Marcus came to me 6 months ago. Said he wanted to propose but couldn't afford the ring Emily had her heart set on. Asked if I knew any jewelers who might give him a deal. I bought it myself and told him to pay me back whenever. $42,000. He's made exactly 0 payments so far. My head was spinning. Why didn't you tell me? Because it doesn't matter. I can afford it, and I wanted your daughter to be happy. But now she's treating you like an embarrassment? He shook his head. Now it matters. Who do you think paid the deposit for the rehearsal dinner venue? Marcus's family, I thought. Nope. They wanted that specific venue but didn't want to put down the deposit. So I did. I also covered the catering advance and approved the wine list. I've been helping Marcus's family look generous without them spending nearly as much as they're claiming. I didn't know what to say. Robert pulled out his phone. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to that rehearsal dinner, and I'm coming with you. We're going to walk in together, and I'm going to make it very clear who's actually been financing this wedding. Robert, you don't have to do this. Yes, I do, because 15 years ago you saved my life by just showing up and sitting with me. Now I'm returning the favor. He met my eyes. Let me be presentable enough for your daughter. The bitter irony of that statement hung between us. She's going to be mortified, I said. Good. Maybe it'll teach her something about loyalty and gratitude. Besides, he smiled, I've been wanting to meet Marcus's family. I hear they think rather highly of themselves. It'll be fun to pop that bubble. I should have said no. Should have told him that I'd handle it myself, that I didn't need anyone to fight my battles. But the truth was, I was tired. Tired of working myself to death for someone who now saw me as an embarrassment. Tired of being invisible while Marcus's family took credit for my sacrifices. Tired of being presentable enough to pay the bills, but not presentable enough to be seen. Okay, I said. Let's do it. Robert grinned. Excellent. I'll pick you up. And we're both wearing Tom Ford. I know a tailor. The 2 weeks before the rehearsal dinner passed in a strange haze. I went through my normal routines, warehouse work, truck driving, maintaining the house, but everything felt different, like I was preparing for battle. Robert took me shopping, which was an experience. I'd never been in stores where they offered you champagne while you tried on clothes. The suit he bought me cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. When I objected, he just waved me off. Consider it part of your consulting fee. Besides, you're going to need it for the wedding ceremony, too. Can't have Emily's father looking anything less than impeccable. The tailor took my measurements and promised the suit would be ready in a week. Robert also insisted on new shoes, a new watch, and a haircut at a salon where they gave you a scalp massage and offered you espresso. I barely recognized myself in the mirror afterward. I looked like someone who belonged in Marcus's world, someone presentable. It felt like a costume. Emily called a few times during those 2 weeks. She talked about last-minute wedding details, about how stressed she was, about how Marcus's mother was being difficult about the seating arrangements. She didn't mention the rehearsal dinner, didn't ask how I was feeling about being excluded, just assumed I'd accepted my place outside her new life. Each conversation carved out a little more of my heart. The night before the rehearsal dinner, Robert called to confirm our plan. I've been thinking, he said. Maybe we should tell them ahead of time, give them a chance to save face. You're getting cold feet? No, I'm giving you an out. This is going to embarrass your daughter in front of her future in-laws. I want to make sure you're ready for that. I thought about Emily's voice on the phone. You're not really presentable. I thought about 23 years of sacrifice, of choosing her needs over my own, of working myself into an early grave to give her every advantage. I'm ready, I said. The next evening, Robert picked me up in his Mercedes. I felt ridiculous in my expensive suit, like a kid playing dress-up. You look good, Robert said. Confident, like you belong. I don't belong in that world. Neither do most of the people in it. They're just better at pretending. He glanced at me. You know, the real difference between old money and new money isn't taste or breeding or any of that nonsense they tell themselves. It's shame. Old money has had enough generations to forget where they came from, to forget that their great-great-grandfather probably made his fortune doing something unsavory. New money still remembers the struggle, still carries it. People like Marcus's family mistake that shame for inferiority, but it's actually the only thing that keeps us human. We drove in silence for a while. Then Robert said, Emily's going to be angry. I know. She might not forgive you. I know that too. So why are we doing this? I looked out the window at the city passing by. Because sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone you love is show them who they're becoming before it's too late. The venue was everything Emily had dreamed of. A historic hotel downtown with crystal chandeliers and marble floors, the kind of place where they charged $30 for a side salad and acted like they were doing you a favor. Robert and I arrived fashionably late. He'd insisted on it. Let them get comfortable first. Let them settle into their assumptions, then we make an entrance. We could hear the party before we saw it. Laughter and clinking glasses from the private dining room. Through the doorway, I caught glimpses of Emily in a cream-colored dress, looking radiantly happy. Marcus stood beside her, handsome in his tailored suit. His parents held court at the head of the table, Marcus's mother in pearls and condescension. I almost turned around, almost told Robert this was a mistake. Then I heard Marcus's mother's voice clearly as someone opened the door wider. Her father, well, he's not here tonight, works in a warehouse or something, blue collar, sweet man I'm sure, but you understand why we thought it best to keep the rehearsal dinner more refined. The way she said blue collar made it sound like a disease. Several people murmured sympathetically. Someone laughed. Emily didn't correct her, didn't defend me, just smiled and changed the subject to the wedding flowers. Robert looked at me. Ready? I straightened my tie. Let's go. We walked through the door together, and I had to give Robert credit. He knew how to make an entrance. He didn't rush or make a scene, just walked in calmly, confidently, like he owned the place, which, given that he'd paid for it, wasn't far from the truth. The room didn't go silent all at once. It was gradual. One person noticed us. Then another. Then someone recognized Robert from business news or social media. The conversation died in waves, like dominoes falling. Emily saw us last. She'd been laughing at something Marcus said, her hand on his arm, playing the perfect bride-to-be. Then she looked up and saw me standing in the doorway in a suit that probably cost more than her wedding dress. The color drained from her face. Dad? Her voice was small, confused. What are you doing here? Robert stepped forward, all charm and confidence. Emily, you look absolutely stunning, and you must be Marcus. He extended his hand to my future son-in-law, who shook it automatically, still trying to process what was happening. Robert Chen, I'm your future father-in-law's business partner. I've heard so much about you. Marcus's father stood up, recognition dawning. Robert Chen, from Chen Technologies? The same. Robert's smile was warm, but his eyes were sharp. You must be Marcus's father. Lovely to finally meet the family. I've been so looking forward to this dinner. It's an honor to sponsor such a beautiful event. The word sponsor hung in the air like a bomb waiting to go off. Marcus's mother had composed herself enough to paste on a smile. Sponsor? I'm afraid there's been some confusion. Our family arranged this dinner for the wedding party. Did you? Robert's tone was pleasant, curious, like he was genuinely confused. That's odd. I have the receipt for the venue deposit right here on my phone. Paid 3 months ago. Would you like to see it? The smile froze on her face. Robert turned to the restaurant manager, who was hovering nearby. Excuse me, could you confirm who paid for tonight's event? I just want to make sure there's no confusion about the billing. The manager, looking extremely uncomfortable, cleared his throat. The deposit and guarantee were paid by Mr. Chen's office, sir. The final bill will go to him as well, as arranged. Robert nodded. Thank you. Just wanted to clear that up. He turned back to the group, his smile never wavering. I also covered the catering advance and personally selected the wine list. I hope everyone enjoys it. I'm told the 09 Bordeaux is exceptional. You could have heard a pin drop. Emily was staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Horror mixed with dawning realization, mixed with something that might have been shame. Marcus's mother tried to recover. Well, that's very generous of you, Mr. Chen. We had offered to handle the dinner, but if you insisted on contributing... Contributing? Robert's eyebrows rose. No, I paid for it, in full. Just as I paid for Marcus's engagement ring when he couldn't quite afford the one Emily wanted. $42,000, wasn't it, Marcus? Beautiful stone. Have you started making those payments back to me yet? Marcus looked like he wanted the marble floor to swallow him. We've been saving. The wedding expenses... Of course. No rush. Robert waved it off magnanimously. Then he turned to Marcus's father. I'm curious, though. How much did your family contribute to the wedding? I know Emily's father here has covered roughly 82% of the total costs. The dress, the photographer, the flowers, the invitations, the transportation. Quite a bill. But I assume your family is handling the ceremony venue and the reception? Marcus's father's mouth opened and closed like a fish. The bar service. And we offered to pay for the band. Offered to pay or actually paid? Robert's voice was still pleasant, but there was steel underneath. No one answered. Robert nodded slowly. I see. So Emily's father, The man who works 2 jobs and drives a 10-year-old truck has paid for most of his daughter's wedding, but he wasn't presentable enough to attend tonight's dinner. Is that the situation? The silence was absolute. I hadn't said a word yet, just stood there in my expensive suit, watching my daughter's face crumble as she realized what she'd done. What her fiancé's family now knew, that the humble warehouse worker she'd been ashamed of had more class and generosity than any of them. Emily moved toward me, her eyes filling with tears. Dad, you told me I wasn't presentable enough. I kept my voice level, calm. No anger, no accusation, just facts. You said I would embarrass you in front of Marcus's family, that I didn't meet their standards. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger. A beautiful, poised stranger who'd forgotten where she came from. You meant every word, and you're probably right. I'm not presentable by their standards. I work with my hands. I live in a modest house. I shop at Walmart. I'm exactly the kind of person they look down on. Marcus's mother started to protest, but I held up a hand. But I'm also the person who raised you, who worked 3 jobs so you could go to private school, who sold his father's coin collection so you could take SAT prep classes, who refinanced his house so you could graduate college without debt. I'm the person who loved you enough to let you be ashamed of him. Emily was crying now, mascara running down her face. Dad, please. I came tonight because Robert wanted me to. Because he thought I deserved to be here. And because I wanted you to see something, I gestured around the room. These people, this world you're so desperate to join, they're not better than us. They're not more valuable or more worthy. They just have more money. And even then, they're happy to let other people pay while they take the credit. I looked at Marcus. He had the decency to look ashamed. I hope you love my daughter. I hope you'll treat her well. But know this. If you ever make her feel like she's not good enough, if you ever look down on her or make her ashamed of where she came from, you'll answer to me. Understood? He nodded mutely. I turned back to Emily. I'm going to leave now. I'll be at the ceremony tomorrow, and I'll walk you down that aisle with pride, because you're my daughter, and I love you. But after tonight, you need to think about the kind of person you want to be, the kind of family you want to have. Because what you did to me, that's not who I raised you to be. The tears were flowing freely now. She reached for my hand. Dad, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I squeezed her hand once, then let go. I know you are. The question is whether you're sorry because you got caught, or sorry because you understand what you did wrong. I turned to leave. Robert moved to follow me, but I shook my head. Stay, I told him. Enjoy the dinner you paid for. Make sure they treat my daughter right. Robert nodded, understanding. Call me tomorrow. I walked out of that hotel with my head high, leaving behind a room full of stunned, guilty faces. The doorman called me a cab, and I rode home in silence, still wearing that expensive suit that made me look like someone I wasn't. When I got home, I took off the suit, hung it carefully in my closet, and put on my old jeans and work shirt. Then I sat at my kitchen table and looked at the photos of Emily on the walls. All those years, all those sacrifices, all that love. Had it been worth it? I didn't know anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Just sat in my living room, watching the hours tick by, wondering if I'd just destroyed my relationship with my daughter forever. Around 2 a.m, my phone buzzed with a text from Robert. Still at dinner. You should see them scrambling. Marcus's mother actually apologized. Emily's a mess, but she's thinking, you did the right thing. I wasn't sure I believed him. The phone rang at 7 a.m. Emily's name on the screen. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Dad. Her voice was raw from crying. Please don't hang up. I'm not going to hang up. I sat up all night thinking about what you said, about what I did. She took a shaky breath. You're right. About everything. I was ashamed of you, and that's unforgivable. You gave me everything, and I treated you like you were an embarrassment. I didn't say anything, just listened. Marcus's mother pulled me aside after you left. She said she was impressed by your dignity, said you carried yourself better than most people she knows with 10 times the money. And Dad, she's right. You're the most dignified person I know, and I couldn't see it because I was too busy trying to fit into a world that doesn't matter. Emily, let me finish. Please. She was crying again. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness. I know I hurt you in a way I can't take back. But I'm asking you to still come tomorrow, to still walk me down the aisle. Not because I deserve it, but because you're my dad, and I love you, and I need you there. I closed my eyes. Thought about all those years, all those sacrifices. All that love that had somehow gotten twisted into shame and social climbing and forgetting what mattered. "I'll be there," I said quietly. "I was always going to be there." She sobbed with relief. Thank you, Daddy." "But Emily, we need to talk after the wedding. Really talk about what kind of relationship we're going to have going forward, because I can't go through that again." "I know, I promise. We'll talk about everything. I want to do better. I want to be the daughter you raised me to be." After we hung up, I sat there feeling emotionally wrung out, exhausted, but maybe, just maybe, a little bit hopeful. The wedding ceremony was at 4 that afternoon. I spent the morning in a daze, going through the motions of showering and dressing in my expensive suit. Robert called to check on me, said he'd be at the ceremony too, sitting in the 3rd row with his family. "How's Emily?" I asked. Subdued, thoughtful. "Marcus's family is being remarkably polite today. Funny how a little accountability changes behavior." I laughed despite myself. "You enjoyed last night, didn't you?" "Immensely. I haven't had that much fun deflating self-important people in years." He paused. "How are you doing? Really?" "I don't know. Ask me after today." The ceremony was at a historic church downtown. More money spent on flowers and ribbons and elaborate decorations. The parking lot was full of luxury cars. I pulled up in my old truck and tried not to feel self-conscious. Robert was waiting for me outside, looking dapper in his own suit. Ready? As I'll ever be. Inside, the church was packed with people I didn't know. Marcus's family and friends filled most of the pews. My side was sparse, a few of my coworkers from the warehouse, some neighbors, Robert and his family, the physical representation of Emily's new world versus her old one. I stood in the vestibule, waiting for Emily to arrive. The wedding planner kept giving me nervous looks, like she expected me to cause a scene. Then Emily appeared, and my breath caught. She looked beautiful. The dress I'd paid for fit her perfectly, making her look like something out of a fairy tale. But more than that, she looked vulnerable, scared. When she saw me, her eyes filled with tears. "Dad! You look beautiful, sweetheart." She took my arm, and we stood there for a moment before the music started. Just the two of us, like it had been for so many years. "I'm scared I've ruined everything," she whispered. "Between us, between me and Marcus's family, everything. You haven't ruined anything that can't be fixed, but you're going to have to work at it. Work at being the person you want to be, not the person you think you should be." The music swelled. The doors opened. Everyone stood. "I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, baby girl. Always have, always will." We walked down that aisle together, her hand on my arm, both of us blinking back tears. I could feel everyone's eyes on us, judging, evaluating, reassessing after last night's revelation. But I kept my head high, my step steady. I'd earned the right to walk my daughter down this aisle. I'd earned it through 23 years of sacrifice and love. When we reached the altar, Marcus stood there looking nervous and sincere. I placed Emily's hand in his and leaned close to whisper, "Take care of her, or answer to me." He nodded, understanding. "I will, sir. I promise." I stepped back and took my seat in the front row, watched my daughter get married to a man I barely knew, joining a family that had looked down on us hours ago. But Marcus was looking at Emily like she was his whole world, and Emily was looking at him with hope and love, and maybe that was enough. The ceremony was beautiful. Traditional vows, perfect flowers, everything Emily had dreamed of. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife and they kissed, the church erupted in applause. I clapped too, tears running down my face. Happy tears, sad tears, complicated tears that held 23 years of joy and sacrifice and disappointment and love. At the reception, Emily made sure I was seated at the head table, between her and Robert. Marcus's mother was on Marcus's other side, and she kept shooting me uncertain glances like she wasn't sure how to treat me now. The best man's toast mentioned Marcus's generous family and beautiful bride, but didn't mention me at all. I felt that omission like a slap. Then Emily stood up, unscheduled. The room went quiet. "I know this isn't traditional," she said, her voice shaking slightly, "but I need to say something. Everyone here knows that Marcus comes from a wonderful family. They've been generous and welcoming, and I'm grateful to be part of their world." She turned to look at me. "But I need to make sure everyone also knows about my father, because I almost made the mistake of taking him for granted, of being ashamed of him, and that would have been the biggest mistake of my life." My throat tightened. My dad raised me alone from the time I was 3 years old. He worked 2 jobs, sometimes 3, so I could have opportunities he never had. He paid for my private school, my college education, most of this wedding. He sacrificed everything so I could have everything, and when I tried to exclude him from last night's dinner because I was afraid he wasn't presentable enough, he showed more grace and dignity than I deserved. She raised her glass, her hand trembling. So I want everyone here to know, I am the daughter of a warehouse worker, a truck driver, a security guard, and I am so proud of that. I'm proud of where I come from. I'm proud of the man who raised me, and from now on, anyone who has a problem with my family of origin has a problem with me. The room erupted in applause. I stood up and hugged my daughter while she cried into my shoulder. "Thank you, Daddy," she whispered, "for everything, for never giving up on me, even when I gave up on myself." Over her shoulder, I saw Marcus's mother wiping her eyes, saw Robert grinning, saw the room full of people reassessing their assumptions one more time. Maybe this was going to be okay after all. The next morning, my phone rang early. Emily's name on the screen again, but this time I answered without hesitation. "Can we talk before Marcus and I leave for the honeymoon? Just you and me?" She came over an hour later, still looking exhausted from the wedding, but more relaxed than I'd seen her in months. We sat at my kitchen table, the one I'd bought at a garage sale 15 years ago, and I made us coffee in my chipped mugs. "This place always smelled like coffee," she said, looking around. "Every morning before school. You'd be making breakfast and coffee, usually in your work clothes because you'd just gotten home from a night shift. You remember that?" "I remember everything, Dad. I just forgot to appreciate it." She wrapped her hands around her mug. "Can I tell you something? Last night at the reception, Marcus's mother pulled me aside. She told me that she'd been judging you based on your job and your truck, but after the rehearsal dinner she realized she'd been wrong. She said you had something her family lost generations ago, the knowledge of what matters." I didn't know what to say to that. "And Marcus?" Emily continued. "He's been doing a lot of thinking, too. He's ashamed that he let me treat you that way, that he didn't stand up for you when his mother made those comments. He wants to get to know you better. The real you, not the version I was trying to hide." "I'd like that," I said honestly. "There's something else." She reached into her purse and pulled out an envelope. "Robert told me about the consulting arrangement, about how you've been helping him for years and he's been helping us. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I wanted you to believe that I'd done it all on my own, that my hard work was enough. I had too much pride to admit that I'd needed help." "But you did do it on your own, Dad. Robert helped because you earned it, because you were there for him when he needed someone. That's not charity, that's friendship. That's what people do when they care about each other." She pushed the envelope toward me. "This is from Marcus and me. We've been doing math all night." I opened it. Inside was a check and a handwritten note. The check was for $37,000. The note said, "First installment on repaying everything you've spent on the wedding. We'll have the rest to you within a year. We'd also like to pay off your truck loan and your credit cards. It's not about the money, Dad. It's about showing you that we understand what you sacrificed, that we're not going to let you keep sacrificing while we pretend to be something we're not. Love, Emily and Marcus." I stared at the check, unable to speak. "You don't have to accept it," Emily said quickly. "If it makes you uncomfortable or if you feel like we're—" "Thank you," I managed. "This means more than you know." She reached across the table and took my hand. "I'm so sorry, Dad, for everything, for being ashamed of you, for trying to exclude you, for forgetting who raised me and how I got here. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making this up to you." "You don't have to make anything up to me. You just have to remember. Remember where you came from. Remember what matters. Remember that love and loyalty are worth more than any amount of money or social status." "I will. I promise." She squeezed my hand. "And Dad, I want my kids to know you. The real you. I want them to hear stories about how their grandpa worked 3 jobs and ate rice and beans so their mom could have piano lessons. I want them to understand what real sacrifice looks like." Something loosened in my chest, a knot I'd been carrying since that phone call 2 weeks ago. "I'd like that too." We sat there for a long time, just talking, about her childhood, about the sacrifices I'd made, about the future she and Marcus were building together. She told me they'd decided to live in a modest apartment instead of the luxury condo Marcus's parents had offered to help them buy. They wanted to build their own life, on their own terms, without the weight of family expectations. "I spent so long trying to fit into Marcus's world that I forgot I already had a world worth keeping," she said. "A world you built for me. I'm not going to throw that away again." Before she left, she hugged me tight. "I love you, Daddy, and I'm proud to be your daughter. No matter where life takes us, no matter how much money we do or don't have, I want you to know that. I've always known that, sweetheart, even when you forgot it yourself." After she left, I sat at my kitchen table and looked at that check. $37,000. More money than I'd seen in one place in years. But that's not what made me cry. What made me cry was the knowledge that I'd gotten my daughter back. The real Emily, not the one trying to be someone she wasn't. The girl who understood sacrifice and love and loyalty. The girl I'd raised. Robert called that afternoon. "How are you holding up?" "Better than I thought I'd be." "Emily told me what they're doing, paying you back. That's good. They're learning." "Robert, I need to thank you for last night, for all these years, for being there when I needed someone. You saved my life 15 years ago. I've just been returning the favor." He paused. "You know what the real difference is between you and Marcus's family? They inherit their worth. You create it. They take credit for other people's work. You give credit where it's due. They judge people by their bank accounts. You judge them by their character. That's why you'll always be richer than they are in every way that matters." I laughed. "When did you become such a philosopher?" "I learned from the best. Security guard working 3 jobs who took time to sit with a stranger having the worst night of his life." His voice turned serious. "Hey, I mean it. Everything I have, everything I've built, started that night when you showed me that there was still kindness in the world, that there were still people who helped strangers for no reason other than it was the right thing to do. You changed my life. I just want to make sure you know that. I do now." After we hung up, I walked around my modest house, looked at the worn carpet, the outdated kitchen, the secondhand furniture. None of it had changed, but somehow it looked different now. Not shabby or embarrassing, but comfortable. Lived in. A testament to years of hard work and love. I thought about Emily in her cream-colored wedding dress, standing at that altar. About Marcus looking at her like she was his whole world. About the future they were building together, hopefully with the lessons they'd learned from the past few days. I thought about the warehouse where I'd work tomorrow, and the truck I'd drive this weekend, and the modest life I'd continue to lead, and I realized I didn't want it any other way. Because here's what Marcus's family would never understand. There's honor in hard work. There's dignity in sacrifice. There's wealth in loving someone enough to give them everything, even when they don't appreciate it, even when they're ashamed of you. That kind of wealth can't be inherited or bought. It has to be earned through years of showing up, day after day, putting someone else's needs before your own. I'd earned it, and no amount of old money or social status or country club memberships could take that away. My phone buzzed with a text from Emily. "Thank you for always being there, even when I didn't deserve it, especially then. I love you, Dad." I texted back, "I love you too, sweetheart. Always have, always will. Now go enjoy your honeymoon. We'll talk when you get back." I put my phone down and smiled. The kitchen still smelled like coffee. The table was still scarred from years of homework and family dinners. The photos on the wall still showed every milestone of Emily's life. Nothing had really changed, except everything had. My daughter had remembered who she was, who I'd raised her to be. And that was worth more than all the rehearsal dinners and expensive rings and society connections in the world. I'd spent 23 years teaching her about love and sacrifice and hard work, and in one difficult weekend she'd finally learned the most important lesson of all, that the people who love you enough to work 3 jobs and eat rice and beans and sacrifice everything for your happiness, those are the people worth keeping, the people worth being proud of, the people who define what it means to be presentable in the only way that actually matters, not by the cost of their suit or the prestige of their job or the size of their house, but by the size of their heart and the depth of their love and their willingness to show up day after day, year after year, even when no one's watching, even when no one appreciates it, even when their own daughter tells them they're too embarrassing to be seen. That's the kind of presentable I'd always been. And finally, Emily understood that too. 6 months later, Emily and Marcus invited me to their apartment for dinner. It was a modest place in a nice neighborhood, nothing like the luxury condo his parents had offered. When I arrived, Emily answered the door in jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. "Come in, Dad. Marcus is making his grandmother's pasta recipe. We've been practicing." The apartment smelled like garlic and tomatoes. Marcus came out of the kitchen wearing an apron, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. "Mr. Sullivan, come in, come in. Hope you're hungry." Over dinner, they told me about their new life. Emily had started volunteering at a community center, teaching music to kids who couldn't afford private lessons. Marcus had begun mentoring students from low-income backgrounds who were trying to break into his industry. "We've been thinking a lot about what you said," Marcus told me, "about remembering what matters. We want to make sure we never forget again." Emily reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Also, we have news. We're pregnant." I nearly dropped my fork. "Pregnant? Already? She laughed. 3 months. We wanted to wait until we were sure before telling everyone, but you're the first to know. Well, you and Robert. We told him last week. A grandchild, I said, letting the reality sink in. I'm going to be a grandfather. And we want you to be a big part of their life, Marcus said. We want them to know their grandpa, to hear the stories, to understand what real love and sacrifice look like. After dinner, we sat in their living room drinking coffee from mugs Emily had bought at Target. No fine china, no pretense. Just 3 people talking about the future. Have you told Marcus's parents? I asked. Emily and Marcus exchanged a look. We told them yesterday, Emily said. His mother cried. Happy tears? Then she asked if she could apologize to you properly. She's been wanting to reach out, but wasn't sure if you'd want to hear from her. Tell her I'd be happy to talk with her. She also said something interesting, Marcus added. She said that night at the rehearsal dinner was the first time in years anyone had challenged her assumptions, that she'd been living in a bubble of people who all thought the same way, valued the same things. She said it was a wake-up call. I thought about that. Is she sincere? I think so, Emily said. She's been different since the wedding, less judgmental, more interested in people's stories rather than their status. She even visited the community center where I volunteer, said she was impressed by the work they do. People can change, I thought. Given the right push at the right moment, people can surprise you. Before I left that night, Emily walked me to my truck. The same old truck I'd been driving for years, now finally paid off thanks to her and Marcus. Dad, can I tell you something? Always. Marcus and I have been talking about names. If it's a boy, we want to name him after you. If it's a girl, we want to name her Grace. Because that's what you showed me, even when I didn't deserve it. Grace. I pulled my daughter into a hug. This brilliant, beautiful woman I'd raised alone. This person who'd lost her way but found it again. Either way, I said, that kid is going to be so loved. By you, by Marcus, by both families. And by a grandfather who can't wait to spoil them rotten. She laughed through her tears. You've earned that right. Driving home that night, my truck radio playing softly. I thought about the journey that had brought us here. From that painful phone call telling me I wasn't presentable enough, through the confrontation at the rehearsal dinner, to this moment of healing and hope. I thought about Robert, who'd stood by me when I needed someone, about Emily, who'd learned a hard lesson and come out stronger, about Marcus, who'd proven himself to be a good man despite his upbringing, even about Marcus's mother, who seemed to be genuinely trying to change. Most of all, I thought about the grandchild on the way, a new generation who would grow up understanding both worlds, the privilege of wealth and the dignity of hard work, who would learn from their parents' mistakes and their grandfather's example. When I got home, I sat at my kitchen table one more time, looked at the photos on the walls. Soon there would be new photos to add, ultrasound pictures, baby pictures, first birthdays and graduations, and all the moments that make up a life. My phone buzzed. A message from Robert. Heard the baby news? Congratulations, Grandpa. Drinks next week to celebrate? I smiled and texted back. Sounds perfect. Thanks for everything, friend. Anytime. That's what friends do. That's what presentable people do. I laughed out loud at that. Because he was right. Being presentable had nothing to do with money or status or fitting into someone else's idea of acceptable. It had everything to do with showing up, with being there, with loving people enough to call them on their mistakes and forgive them when they learned from them. It was about being the kind of person who worked 3 jobs so their kid could have opportunities. The kind of person who sat with a stranger having the worst night of their life. The kind of person who stood up at a rehearsal dinner and made a point not about revenge but about dignity and respect. That was presentable, and I'd been presentable all along,